Why did you want to become a film director?
Well, it is difficult. Originally I studied literature and wanted to be a writer, a poet, which is not the most easy profession. I was in a rock and roll band in the late 70s, early 80s. I was also writing a lot, and I was seeing a lot of films. In fact, in the mid-70s, I went to Paris to study and spent most of my time at the Cinémathèque in France, in Paris, and saw such a variety of films from around the world that the form of cinema just became it went so deep in me that I just found it such a beautiful form. And then my writing started imitating or referring to films and film scripts and the way films are written about. And then on a whim, I applied to go to film school and was able to go there for a few years and started making films.
You make it almost sound like before going to Paris, you'd never been to a movie theater.
Well, I'm from Akron, Ohio, which is not exactly a capital of cinema. Although my mother was a film reviewer before she was married for a small newspaper. So she knew she was interested in movies, but more mainstream kind of films. But I saw films as a child in Akron, mostly horror films and films for kids. But really, going to Paris was really when I realized what cinema was and really the range of possibilities as a form of expression.
But you had actually wanted to be a poet.
Well, I studied with some really great poets from what they call the New York School of Poets. Kenneth Koch and David Shapiro were teachers of mine at Columbia University. And I was always very interested in poetry as kind of outsiders, people that don't express things for money. There aren't so many wealthy poets throughout history. And it just was, something close to me, writing and poetry. But all these things kind of merge, music and any form of expression, cinema and poetry and fiction, painting, design, they're all connected and they're all incorporated in film. So film has so many elements within it of certain forms,
Was there any risk that we'd have lost you to the music business?
Yeah, I've always felt that it was an odd turn of coincidence that I started making films, because I think I sort of always felt I was destined to be a musician. And at some point I took a detour. At the point when I was working as a musician was when I really started learning about filmmaking.
What instrument did you play?
Well, I played, back then I played the very primitive synthesizers and keyboards, vocals and guitars, but usually oddly tuned guitars. So I played a number of things, none of them as an expert, not a virtuoso on any instrument. I still play guitar and still make music for myself.
What was the name of the band?
Our band was called the Del Byzantines, and we played in New York and other cities in the US, went to London once, had a few records.
So what were the kind of films that you saw in Paris which sort of triggered this connection to the poetry and the music?
Well, I saw so many films, that I didn't know about. Films by Ray from India, films, Japanese films by Naruse and Ozu, films by Jarmusch, films by Jacques Rivette and the Nouvelle Vague, classical French films, a lot of Hollywood films from the 40s and 50s. Great directors like Sam Fuller and Nick Ray and Billy Wilder, Max O'Fools, who worked in Europe and the US. So it was just like a wealth of all different types of films.